we will turn to the only resource we have that in times of need always grows, the goodness and the courage of the American people. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in. The bottom line is this: from now on in America, any definition of a successful life must include service to others.
Our great country is defined based upon the idea that we continue to find ways to make our country greater for our children and our grandchildren. That idea is led by my grandfather, George H.W. Bush. Despite the fact that people like my grandfather and my grandmother had important roles with respect to our great country, I think most people don't believe it, but it was really a normal upbringing filled with a loving family of support.
So I was 4 years old when my grandfather became president. I mean, it didn't register the magnitude of that job and the importance of it.
Imagine just being at the White House as a young boy. When you get a Secret Service detail and you're like 2.5, you know something's going on.
His inauguration, we were in first grade. I didn't realize that that was anything special for my grandfather. I thought everyone's grandfather got an inauguration. I thought that we just loved grandfathers in the United States. And so it's not a surprise to me looking back that it was really unclear the political side of him, because that was never forefront when we spent time with him.
You know, truly growing up, it was like, oh my God, we just gotta go to this big white house and have fun and run around with our cousins. And it was really just about those sort of fun moments. It was Ganny and Gampy. They weren't the president and the first lady. They were just very down to earth, and they're, you know, truly our grandparents.
But it was later, I mean, it was really my teenage years, those golden years, I started to realize even more just how innately special as a human he is, and then connect that to the history lessons that I was learning in school.
He clearly put country first, delaying his college career by first going into the military.
When his country called, he said yes. One of the youngest pilots to serve in World War II, 18 years old when he earned his wings.
We've heard certainly stories of his time in World War II and being so young, and sort of the miraculousness of there being a submarine nearby when his plane was shut down, etc. I've heard those stories really from other people, never from him, because he's so humble that he would never tell a story of himself that comes across as heroic.
That's the way he's always lived his life. He's never asked for credit. He's never asked for the limelight. He just focused on doing the right thing.
Just that simple core is just a function of how I think I view every decision that I make.
George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush are just good people. That's where it all started. All the success springs from that. All the love and the reflection of them you see in their family starts there. I think the grandchildren bought into the family business. And the family business isn't oil or politics or anything else. The family business is service.
I'll go for some of your brisket, if that's okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Politics, it's not embedded in the genetic code of the Bush family. It was really a way in which we could serve the man that we loved the most, more than anything in this world, and that's my grandfather.
How's your grandfather doing?
Thank you for asking. He's just turned 93, and we're hoping he jumps out of a plane when he's 95.
He likes that, doesn't he?
He does.
My grandmother, AKA the Silver Fox, who still wears the pants in the Bush family, was very clear to her grandchildren about politics. You can't ride on anybody's coattails. You can't just show up and put your name on a ballot. You've got to show record of accomplishment. And I'll never forget, in my 20s, her telling me, go out and do something with your life. And do something that people can actually point their finger to and say, this is a man in his own right.
It's an easy drive from the Capitol, and y'all deliver to him.
Every day?
Just north of the Capitol.
But and then property tax at 6%.
That was
The rollback.
Saturday, yes.
Now, as the father of two, as somebody who cares about the state of Texas, and with an opportunity to serve just a few years ago, it inspired me to take that next step and run for office. And thanks to her advice, I actually did something.
I am speaking of a new engagement in the lives of others, a new activism, hands-on and involved, that gets the job done.
I feel so lucky to do what I do. I feel so blessed to wake up every day and be able to, do something I love that also is doing good for the world. My very first trip as a sophomore in college, I went to Guatemala, and it was just so jarring to see kids who should be curious and playing and laughing and, bouncing off the walls, literally be lethargic and sick for lack of something as simple as food. As a mother, seeing mothers who love their kids as much as I love James, but seeing that they can't provide for them is just heartbreaking. So I feel like as a human, you can't not go on those kind of trips and have those experiences and meet those families and communities and kids especially, and not come back and say, I want to do something. And that's when I had the aha moment of like, oh, I love design, I love fashion. Why not design something that will give back in this very tangible way?
Should it be single? I guess the other one was single and it was 2 blocks. This looks great though.
So I started my company, my social business feed, about 10 years ago. Every product we make and sell, there's a number on it, and that signifies the amount of meals you're giving. So as a consumer, you know your exact impact. So we feed kids here and abroad, so in the US and in the poorest countries around the world. And to date, we've been able to give 100 million meals, which is pretty cool. The fact that we're feeding kids in school, and that's enabling kids to go to school and get an education and help encourage their future, that feels good to me. I'm hopeful in my lifetime we can see an end to hunger.
We must bring in the generations, for not only leadership is passed from generation to generation, but so is stewardship.
I definitely had the best examples of people in my family, both my grandfather, my grandmother, my parents, to show me what leadership is. And so much of it is empathy and listening. And I think my grandfather is definitely one of the most empathetic people I've ever met.
We as a people have such a purpose today. It is to make kinder the face of the nation and gentler the face of the world.
He really leads with love. I mean, so much of his life is about connecting to other people, and is this belief that people can change the world in the way they want to. I run an organization called Global Health Corps, and we develop young leaders to solve global health issues. I never thought I would work in global health, at least when I was younger. At his inauguration, he was talking about the 1,000 points of light.
1,000 points of light of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good.
And that seared into my memory, and I don't think I really realized what that would mean for me at the time. And I was really lucky when I was in college to travel with my father for the launch of PEPFAR, which would provide free drugs for people living with AIDS in underdeveloped countries. And I remember landing, and there were hundreds of people waiting in the street for these drugs. And what I hadn't realized before was that these drugs existed. I think I'd always thought that with AIDS, we were waiting for scientists in some lab to come up with the tool needed to keep people alive. And to find out that actually that scientist had come up with that tool years ago, but if you were poor, you didn't get access to it, was really infuriating to me. I love problem solving and I love working with people, and it just seemed like a natural path for me then to get excited about global health and solving issues. The young people that we work with, they're going to do this work throughout the rest of their lives. And so while I know the impact they're making right now, I can't wait to know the impact that they're making in 10 years. And then, of course, the reason that they and we are doing this is that it matters that one person's life is better. It's not actually about this beast of an issue. It's about each individual having access to what they need to live a full and healthy life.
I just think it points to the strength of the fabric of the family, that you now see the grandchildren picking up the mantle and carrying it even farther forward, hopefully, someday.
My friends, we have work to do. There are the children who have nothing, no love, no normalcy. They need our care, our guidance, and our education.
I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters because I wanted to help a kid go to college. For a certain subset of our population, you know, the odds are really unfairly stacked against some of these kids. If you have a parent that's incarcerated, you have a 70% chance of going to prison someday yourself. If you have two parents that are incarcerated, it's a 90%. That's about a quarter of our kids, by the way, that meet one of those demographics. But the truth of the matter is that, again, the natural ingredients are there. And all it takes is this. Meeting this young man named Jalen, who was 6 at the time. I signed up thinking that I would help change his life. And I quickly realized, probably in our first outing, that my life was going to be changed because of this experience and because of this young man.
Redo? Don't worry, I'm good at those. 1, 2.
I think about kind of our experiences together and how he made me realize that the small things in life really matter. You know, it's all put into perspective by this relationship you have when you're really investing your time and your life into the life of somebody else. The best work, in my opinion, does happen in the really micro level. When you change one life, you're changing generations. That if we had more people that wanted to be heroes, so to speak, we could really tackle some of these very large issues.
President Bush says that there can be no definition of a successful life that doesn't include service to others. And I think he was just a wonderful role model for all of them.
I see history as a book with many pages, and each day we fill a page with acts of hopefulness and meaning.
He has just got a life that's one that should be emulated, which is why this school is named after the right guy.
President Bush believed in promoting the civil service. I think for him, the Bush School of Government and Public Service, he saw that as the legacy.
Many of the students who are attracted to the Bush School are attracted to it because of President Bush's leadership and his example of wanting to serve others.
I would not be where I am today if it weren't for the Bush School. My name is Esther Larson, and I work in the nonprofit sector, have been working in the nonprofit world here in Manhattan for about 11 years. When I went to the Bush School, I thought I wanted to do public policy. I didn't even know that nonprofit could be a career, honestly. Seeing someone like President Bush and his commitment to public service as a lifestyle and as a career choice, that was life-changing for me. Currently, in my role here at Hope for New York, is that partnering with organizations like the Salvation Army, I can assess what their needs are, help to allocate resources, and strengthen the programs and services that they are providing to New Yorkers. There's not a lot of power or prestige in what I do, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I know that in some small way, I've helped to make the world a little bit of a better place.
Hopefully, as President Bush said, 100 years from now, graduates from this college will have gone out and changed the world. The really exciting part about being here is that you get to be a part of making that reality. All of us are dedicated to that.
Serving other people has made my life bigger and better and more fulfilling in every way.
If you have the ability, as my cousins and I do, you might as well leverage that for the betterment of others.
I think service is really such a noble calling, and I'm just so grateful that my family led with that example.
He defined his entire life through serving others, and it's an incredible legacy that he's left for all Americans.